Malik wants to steal $9,000 stored in an ATM machine. The ATM machine is located inside a convenience store owned by a man named Gary. Malik's plan was simple. He was going to walk into the store, hoodie on, face mask on, avoid making eye contact with Gary, sneak into the bathroom, and hide out in the toilet stall until Gary closed for business. Once Malik was sure that the coast was clear, he would then leave out the bathroom, disable the alarm from the inside out, then retrieve his set of power tools stored out back behind a dumpster. With a rotary cutter, power saw, sledgehammer, and a crowbar, Malik planned to cut a hole into the ATM inside the store and make out with the $9,000. The plan was so perfect. What could go wrong? Nothing, or so he thought. There are 3 critical factors that made Malik believe that he could actually pull off the heist. Critical factor number 1. Gary was operating his store on a part-time basis. He couldn't afford to pay employees a decent wage yet. Gary still maintained a full-time job outside of the business. Gary had just started that store a few months ago. It cost him a lot of money to buy inventory and even more money for the big down payment to own the 2-story building. The first floor of the small building was the convenience store. The second floor of the building was a 1-bedroom apartment where Gary lived. In order to achieve success, Gary needed to maintain an income outside of the convenience store to pay for the business and his apartment. In the mornings is when Gary would sleep. In the afternoon, Gary operated the convenience store. By late evening, Gary shut the store down, locked everything up, set the alarm, and left for his other job. Gary would leave the building unattended all night till the next morning. Gary's work schedule would grant Malik ample time inside the store undisturbed. Malik would also be able to make as much noise as he needed to crack open that ATM. The first phase of Malik's plan was successful. Phase 1 was to sneak into the bathroom without getting noticed by Gary. Malik managed to sneak into the bathroom when Gary was distracted with multiple customers. The bathroom was small. There was 1 sink, 1 mirror, 1 urinal, and 1 toilet that was enclosed in a stall. The toilet stall is critical factor number 2, which made Malik believe that he could actually steal the money. The toilet was out of order. To prevent customers from entering the stall, Gary taped it off with several layers of do not use yellow tape. Malik planned to spend his time hiding inside the stall. This would be the last place Gary would expect anyone to be. The reason being, 3 weeks prior, a random customer came in and dropped 10 pounds of shit in that toilet and clogged it up. Couldn't get it flushed. It smelled so bad that when Malik walked in there the first time, he threw up on the floor. At the time, Malik was Gary's first and only employee. Gary had sent Malik to do the dirty work of trying to unclog that fucking toilet. When Malik failed, Gary tried to unclog it also. Both Malik and Gary tried, but to no avail. The damn toilet was unflushable, the stench unbearable. Gary placed a box of car air fresheners inside the stall. Then he wrapped it shut with do not use yellow tape, and lastly, placed a sign outside of the bathroom door that read, urinal only, no toilet, sorry. After all Malik went through with that damn toilet and all the weeks of work he put in, Gary refused to pay him. Malik worked in that store for 6 weeks and received not 1 check from Gary. It was an insult to Malik.
I did so much for you. Why can't now be the time that you pay me back? As a favor,
Gary had told him. Malik wasn't trying to hear that bullshit. At 27 years old, Malik was a grown-ass man with grown-ass responsibilities. Favors don't pay for his bills. Favors won't buy Pampers for his baby. And Favors for damn sure won't pay for his child support. But you know what will? That $9,000 locked up in that ATM with Malik's name on it. One of Malik's favorite quotes is a quote that says, "Without pain, there is no reward." Malik knew that in order to be rewarded $9,000, he would have to endure the pain of hiding out in a shitty, stanky-ass toilet stall for a few hours until Gary closed the store. Malik was willing to bet that if he could climb over the stall without disturbing the yellow tape, Gary would assume the bathroom was empty. And without realizing Malik was inside the stall, Gary would close up the shop and go about his merry day. So far, so good. Malik's plan was coming together, but he would soon run into problems. Malik made it over the stall and squatted above the toilet so that no person would be able to see his legs from the lower half of the stall. The toilet had a horseshoe-shaped toilet seat, but it did not have a toilet cover. As Malik squatted above the toilet, every time he looked down, he would see a soup of chunky brown liquid feces. No amount of planning could prepare Malik to endure the misery of that stench. He had on 3 face masks, but his gag reflexes was still active. The flies would fly around and land on any of Malik's exposed skin. They itched the hell out of him. Malik was not muscular in any stretch of the imagination, but even if he spent a lot of time exercising and lifting weights at the gym, building up his leg strength, no amount of exercise would prepare any person, not even a bodybuilder, to squat on a toilet for so long. Squatting just exhausted his leg muscles. Malik had to stand up and off the toilet a few times just to give his legs some relief. It was a risk he had to take. His knees throbbed in pain and felt like they locked in place. Malik heard his knees pop every time he stretched them out. The discomfort of his position aggravated Malik. He was furious while checking his watch constantly. Worst of all, Gary was 12 minutes behind schedule closing the store. Goddamn customers need to get the fuck out, Malik thought. His legs started to wobble. It was time for another stretch break, but the risk was even higher now because Gary could walk in the bathroom at any moment. Right as Malik shifted his weight to get off the toilet, boom! The bathroom door slams open. Gary came bursting in. The sounds of his footsteps was hurried. His footsteps stopped right at the edge of the toilet stall. Gary smacked his hand hard and loud against the wall of the stall. Boom! The sound that followed was... Gary was relieving himself. He had been holding it in for quite a while. Once all the customers were out of the store, he rushed to the bathroom. The urinal was directly to the left of the stall. Malik, with a slight lean, could see Gary's foot. If it were not for the direction Gary's foot was pointing, Malik would have thought his cover was blown. Malik was relieved to know that Gary didn't know he was in the stall. He felt his heart pumping from nervousness. Malik understood that if he so much as made the smallest creak of a sound, it would alert Gary to check inside the stall. The suspense was so intense, but that didn't matter to Malik's legs because they started to wobble uncontrollably. The timing was horrible. The wobble transferred over from Malik's legs onto the toilet seat. The toilet seat clanked against the toilet bowl as if an earthquake reverberated through it. Malik quickly stiffened his leg muscles to cut the noise. His heart was really racing now. Anxiety rattled through Malik's nerves. Did Gary hear that? Malik wondered as beads of sweat formed and poured down from his forehead. He held his breath and his position and waited. Gary continued to pee. God damn, Malik thought. This nigga bladdered the size of a gallon jug. And Gary was still going. Before long, Malik started to lose control of his legs. Oh no, the toilet was about to start to clank again. This time, Malik knew he had no more reserve strength to hold his legs steady. Gary would certainly find out he's in there for sure. Right as the first clanking sound of the toilet seat started, an even louder sound took it over. Gary let out a loud fart, then flushed the urinal. Gary was out the bathroom before it was quiet enough to hear Malik's clanking noise in the toilet stall. Relief. Malik just dodged a bullet. His cover was almost blown. That was so close, Malik thought. He still took the extra precaution to peek below the stall to make sure no one was in the bathroom. And then Malik climbed over the stall. Both of his legs were numb. They felt like wet noodles. Who could have thought that not feeling your legs could feel so painful? He endured the agony as he massaged his quads and his calves. Malik gave his legs one final stretch because now, phase 2 of his plan was about to commence. Malik slowly peeked his head out of the bathroom and looked around to observe that Gary had left the store. Then Malik walked out into the store. Critical factor number 3, the third and most important factor that made Malik believe that he could steal the $9,000 was that he could disarm the alarm without setting it off. All Malik had to do was unscrew the plug from the outlet. The outlet was not located in obvious plain view. You had to know specifically where it was hidden. Malik was privileged to know this secret location. Gary, in the past, had set off the alarm by accident. It was during the time where Gary had not yet memorized the disarm code. The alarm siren sounded off for 20 minutes. Gary struggled to cut off the noise. The security company called and instructed Gary to simply unplug the alarm and replug it back after 30 seconds to reset everything. Malik pretended not to watch Gary walk in the broom closet and move a shelf to get to the plug of the alarm. On the surface, Malik was cool, calm, collected. Beneath the surface, Malik was happy with glee, giddy like a schoolgirl. Malik always wanted to get to that ATM ever since he witnessed the ATM vendor stack $9,000 inside its cash cassettes. The alarm system of the convenience store was Malik's biggest hurdle. Gary never shared the code with Malik. But now Malik knew that he didn't need a code so long as he was inside the store when the alarm was activated. He could get to the plug. Malik had a big old grin behind his face mask after he disabled the alarm and opened the back door to the convenience store to no noise, no sound, no siren. He believed that now there was nothing that could get in between him and the money. I'm a fucking genius, Malik thought as he headed to grab the power tools he had hidden behind the dumpster. Phase 3 of his plan was about to commence. Malik made his way back into the convenience store with tools in hand. He was walking with a limp. His legs still felt like he had just run a marathon, but it was all good. This operation was almost over. Halfway to the ATM, Malik heard the ceiling above him creak. It stopped him dead in his tracks. What the fuck? Malik questioned. Is Gary upstairs in the apartment? That was the sound of footsteps. Hell yeah, he was upstairs, Malik confirmed in a panic. He crouched to the floor immediately. Malik checked his watch for the time. Gary should be at work right now. Why the fuck is he not? It must be his day off, Malik realized. Fuck, he thought. This changes everything. Another one of Malik's favorite quotes is one that says, when a plan doesn't work, don't change the goal, change the plan. And Malik changed his plan midway through. Initially, he wanted to crack open the ATM right then and there inside the store and just make out with the cash. But now that he realized Gary was upstairs in the apartment, Malik would make too much noise with his power tools. Gary would certainly hear the noise from upstairs and investigate. That was no good. Malik didn't need that. Lucky for Malik, his backup plan was to leave with the ATM. The good thing about convenience stores is that there is never a shortage of dollies, and there was a capital L-shaped dolly in the back area that Malik could use. The capital L shape of the dolly was perfect for the job. It had handle grips near the top, and at the intersecting corners of the L, there were big old wheels on each side. All Malik had to do was slip the bottom lip of the dolly beneath the ATM and tilt everything backwards to a 45-degree angle. Once the ATM rested on the wheels and the spine of the dolly, Malik would be able to roll it out the back door and use the loading ramp to make it onto the ground floor outside. There was an abandoned house Malik had scoped out less than a block away. The bando would provide Malik the privacy he needed to crack open that ATM. Malik had hoped that he didn't have to do that. The opportunity for people to see him was too high, too many potential witnesses. But now he had no choice. Gary was upstairs. In order to obtain his goal, he would have to get to that dolly. For now, Malik remained crouched on the floor until Gary stopped moving around upstairs. Several hours would pass before Malik got up to retrieve the dolly. He struggled a little bit to tilt the ATM onto the dolly. His legs were still weak, but he managed. Malik moved slowly across the store. Careful not to knock anything over to make any extra noise, he made it all the way out the store and onto the loading area. He was almost free. The loading ramp was right there, just a few feet away, right within reach. And then Malik heard the sound of a lighter, and simultaneously at the corner of his eye, he spotted the flame light up Gary's face. Gary calmly lit a cigarette as Malik walked past him. Gary had chosen to sit at the darkest corner of the loading area and waited for Malik. Once Malik crossed his path, Gary made his presence known. Malik was so startled, so spooked, it felt like he jumped out of his skin. "Oh shit," he muttered as he stumbled back. The shock of Gary's presence took the remaining strength out of his already weakened legs. His legs gave way. Malik stumbled back a couple of feet trying to regain his footing, but there was no more ground to stand on. Malik reached the edge of the loading dock and fell off. The dolly, still gripped by Malik, followed him. It rolled off the dock while still supporting the weight of the ATM. All three fell over. The dolly and the ATM separated mid-air. As an automatic reflex, Malik released the dolly to brace his fall. Malik landed first, flat on his back. Soon after, the dolly landed right next to him, narrowly missing his body. The ATM, on the other hand, bounced off Malik the way that a bowling ball would bounce off of a spring mattress. It all happened so fast. In slow motion, the sequence of impacts started with the 600-pound ATM landing on Malik's left ankle with 1,000 times the force of a sledgehammer. The force crushed bones and tenderized the muscles and tendons in his ankle. The ATM stood upright for fractions of a second and then it tipped over. The flat side of the ATM slammed against Malik's torso, compressing his chest. The pressure pushed all the air out of Malik's lungs, deflating them like a balloon. 6 of Malik's ribs instantly snapped out and a few bone fragments punctured his deflated lungs. The process knocked all the wind out of him. After the ATM served its damage, it bounced off Malik and landed on his left arm. Malik's body absorbed the entire force of the ATM's fall like a trampoline. Internally, millions of Malik's blood vessels ruptured. Malik sustained excessive hemorrhaging. His lungs started to flood. He was drowning in his own blood.
"I would've shot you dead if I didn't recognize you from the cameras,"
Gary said.
"After all I've done for you, boy, you gonna steal from your own father?"
Gary was now standing at the edge of the dock, looking down at Malik. Gary didn't get to see the ATM crush his son. Gary had no idea something was wrong. He stood there waiting for Malik to respond. He waited for him to say something, anything. Something was off about Malik's movements as he laid on the floor. Malik seemed to be convulsing. His body was jerking up and down erratically.
"Get your ass up, boy,"
Gary commanded. The response Malik gave changed Gary's demeanor from extreme anger to concern. Malik coughed up a splash of blood. Immediately, Gary jumped off the dock. A man his age shouldn't be jumping off heights that high, but this was a moment of crisis. His son needed him. Gary mustered his strength and lifted the ATM off of Malik's left arm. He knelt by the side of his son and realized he was having trouble breathing. Gary flicked off his cigarette, pulled out a cell phone, and fumbled to call the ambulance. Malik, while cradled in his father's arms, attempted to speak. Instead, he coughed up more blood. If he could speak, Malik would have told his father, "I wasn't trying to steal from you, Pop. I was going for the bank's money." Which was true. Malik avoided the cash located in the safe of the convenience store. Malik only concerned himself with the ATM. None of that would have mattered to Gary. He would have preferred to lose the money if it meant he would keep his son. Malik was always the man with the plan. But one thing he could never plan for was the series of events that cost him his life.